Okay, so now we're going to be looking at how to use the different selectors, the different types of selectors that we have in CSS to style our web page, to give the different elements on our web page or the different contents of our web page the style that they need. So that is what we're going to be doing now. Okay, so I'm going to get back to the code. Now, if you want to have a comment, this is how you have a comment in CSS. So you simply have /, then this star, then you write in your comment, then another star, then /. So I'm gonna be talking about selectors now. Okay. So before this class, we looked at how to. Um, before this class, we looked at how to bring in how to bring in CSS to HTML. And when we looked at this, we say that there are three ways. And we say number one is what we call the inline way. Number two is what we call the internal. And lastly, and the most effective, is what we call the external. So those are the various ways we can do CSS, which we've learned. So very importantly, now we're going to be looking at the various selectors. So what are selectors? So CSS selectors help you to select HTML elements you want to style. So they help you to select the very HTML element. So let's say inside here, you have the various HTML elements. You have the head anchor tag, you have the body tag, you have the h1 tag, you have the p tag, this is the p element. You can call them the tags or the elements. So this is the h2 element. But what if we have more than one h2 element? Say here now we have our branches here as h3, but instead of having, so these are our branches is in h3, and these services we offer is in h2. So now if we look at them here, we have in our home page, we have this the h1, this is the h2 services we offer, this is the h3, but we want both of them to be h2. So I'll go back here now, then I'll change this from h3 to h2. So it's now having h2. So it's going to be bigger and it's going to come to the middle, because you can remember here we gave our h2 to be in the middle and be green. So if that is the case, that I've now changed the element from h3 to h2 and I save, when I get back here now, it's going to come to the middle. So I'm now having two h2s. So now that I'm having two h2s, what if I want to style one h2 instead of the two? I want more specificity. So if I come here now and do anything to h2 here, the two of them are going to take the same thing. So let's say I come here and instead of green now, I now have yellow. If I save and I come back here, two of them are having yellow, but I don't like this yellow is not coming up well. So I'm going to change them back to green or green yellow. So I'm going to change it to green yellow and come back here. So both of them are now green yellow. So what if I want to change one and leave the other? So that brings us to using more selectors. So among the selectors we can use what we call the element selector, which is what we've been using since. All these are the elements, the body, the h3, the h1, h2. That is element selector. That is the most easier way that we can easily select, given our knowledge of HTML. So the second one is to select, and more importantly is to use what we call the class, the ID, to select. So we're going to be learning how to use the ID to select. We're also going to be learning ID. Then we're going to be looking at, this is my code completion. ID. Okay, so we have class selector. So let's look at ID and class selectors. Okay, so these are other ways of selecting, but there are more to this, but let's start with these two. So let's say you want to select only this one and style. You don't want to style this one. So you can give it a class. So the way to give a class is once you click inside, you can just simply say class equal to. So you can now give this class a class name. So let me call it branch. So branch is now this. The branch is now the selector. So if I now come here, if I want to style any class, you must start the class with dots. So you say dot, the name of that class, and the name of this class is branch. So I can simply come here now and style this H2 that has a class of branch. So I can now give it a color. So I can say color of, let's say, blue violet. So that's the color that that branch has now. So this branch is a class. Why is it a class? Because inside here, I actually called it class of branch. And if I want to select it, I must say dot. If I didn't put dot, it will be expecting that it's an element. So it will not see it as a class, which is what it is. So if I now get back here, you can see that it is now having a blue violet. So despite the fact that it's H2, it is seeing the class because the class is actually what differentiates it from the other two. And when you come to specificity, the class is seen first before the element. So that is very, very important. No, now you have what we also call the ID. So if I come here, so here you can see that I used class. So if I come to the other H2, instead of using class, I'm now going to use ID. So I'll say that the ID is equal to service. So that is the name of the ID name of service. So if I save this and I want to style this one in particular, if I get back to this style and I come down here and I say hashtag then service. So whenever you want to style an ID, it has to be hash, not dot. Dot is for class. So I'll put my normal opening and closing curly brackets. Then I can say color and give it a specific color. So this time around, I'm gonna say I'm gonna use blue for that. So I'm gonna save this now. So if I get back to my page now, you can see that this is now blue. So this is despite the fact that the H1 had them in other colors, but because ID is more specific. So this, in terms of specificity and closeness to being the right property that the element is going to use, it's going to see the ID first. If it doesn't see ID is the closest, it will see the class. If it doesn't see the class, then it will see the element. So those are the three most important selectors. So you can talk about the element selector, which is what we've been using. You can talk about the ID selector and the class selector. So the difference is that the element selector, you don't need to prefix. You just write the normal element or the normal tags in HTML. For the ID, you have to prefix it with hash before the name that you assign as the ID. And for class, you have to prefix it with dot before the class name. So that class name and ID name is what you give inside the tag in your HTML document. Just the way we assign this H2 here, the ID of service. So this is the ID name. And for this very one, we're assigning the class of branch. This is the branch name. So those are some other ways of styling, which we are going to be looking at. But apart from these ways of styling, we have other ways of styling. We have what we call the pseudo class selectors and the pseudo element selectors, as well as the attribute selectors, which we are going to be getting to as we move forward. But I want you to demonstrate this, and I also want you to develop your form page, because this form page, we are going to be styling it and be using it. You can see that this form already has IDs. So these IDs we can always use from our style sheets, call it from there and style. But most importantly, the most useful selector is the class selector. So all these things are known as selectors. So this is an element selector for the body, element selector for the H3, element selector for the H2, element selector for the H2, class selector for the branch, ID selector for the service. So that is very, very important. So I want you to demonstrate this, and as well, I want you to develop your form.html so that we can look at other selectors and also start the actual styling of our web pages. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I'm good.
So let me stop sharing.